I actually had a functional boss in the group that was not very nice to me, like at all. And she basically told me that I shouldn't speak up about anything and that I was young and immature and that my opinion wasn't respected.
Hello and welcome back to HNI Podcast. I have with me today Marisa Kamall, and we're going to speak about something very, very interesting. We're going to speak about women in leadership. Hello, Marisa, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with a fist bump.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is Marisa Kamall?
Who am I? Okay, so I'm, let's go mother first, because it's a big part of my story and the change for direction, which I think we'll talk about. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm big corporate.
And are you still in corporate?
No, I'm not in corporate after like a couple of decades almost. Don't want to show my age, but I'm out.
And how does that feel?
It feels good. So it's been a bit of a journey over the last few years, and I think I've gone through the bit which is like, am I going to go back? You know, that kind of wobble that you could imagine you have, and now I'm like on the straight, and loving it. Thanks.
And how did this transition happen? So from corporate to taking this decision to be an entrepreneur, what story can you tell us that planted that seed as like, you know what, no more? I'm starting my own thing. How did that happen? Yeah,
so I don't want to take it into a place of, I guess, hardship and sadness, but it's born from that. So I was managing director in banking, most recently as the regional COO for HSBC for the Middle East. And I decided to leave after a catalogue of events, really. The first was having a baby, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. If anyone's got one, then do you
I have a 2-year-old, so yes. I really know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're still like right in the thick of it. And it really hit me actually. So I had postnatal depression, like for me, just had never experienced anything like it. So it really kind of hit me as it does, you know, a lot of women. And then I had pneumonia, which was life-threatening. And I look back on that now, and that was really as a result of not taking care of myself after Paloma was born, you know, like trying to get back and just ignore the postnatal depression, not deal with it. And then I think my body just shut down. And then shortly after, my employer had a conversation with me about making some changes to my role. Okay. And it was the three things happening together that just made me think enough is enough. I need to do something that has a social impact and is just aligned to my values. So that was it. And then Gaia was born.
So the values was mainly the drive and some of those previous stories. So when we talk about values, and this is something also that's very important and dear to my heart. Yeah. What kind of values or what values are planted in you that said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Let me start Gaia and let's move forward with it. And when we talk about also women in leadership, how can you combine those values with what you have achieved so far?
So my core values, they've evolved over time, but really now are growth, authenticity, and vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Okay, that's a new one for me. Can you shed the light more about vulnerability?
I just think it's so important in a world full of, you know, inauthentic, not very vulnerable. What's the word? What's the opposite to not very vulnerable? Unvulnerable. Not very vulnerable world leaders and kind of within corporates. It's so important to show the reality, because actually, like, the front that we see on most people just isn't the truth. Yeah. You know, like, we all have worries, we all have challenges, we can all overthink, we can all be people pleasers, we can all be bad with boundaries and all of that stuff. I think if you're not talking about the real stuff, then you're just building a pipeline of disingenuous leaders to follow. So for me, it's really core.
I don't want to generalize, but can we say that sometimes leaders are emotionless, which is the opposite of vulnerability? Do you think people working, and I don't want to say also everyone who's working in corporate, but most of the people working in corporate, do you say that in order for them to succeed or move through all the challenges and all the pressure and all the stress that comes from KPIs, you need to give results, it turns people by time to emotionless leaders?
I think there's a a difference between not having emotions, which I would say is emotionless, and maybe hiding them.
Okay.
And I think actually what's happening is, and you see is a lot of leaders and people in the workforce are suffering from burnout and anxiety. And I think that's as a result of not sharing and not seeing like the true challenges and discussing things like properly.
Yeah.
And so I think people are internalizing those pressures.
Yeah.
And then you see, I guess, these like male energy archetypes that you see on the world stage, and it's so dominating right now that it feels there is no space for like talking about emotions or emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And I disagree. I'm like trying to be the antidote to that.
So if a leader shows emotions to his team, do you think this is a plus, or the team might get worried? Because when I show emotions to the team, if I'm stressed, for example, and I'm going to show emotions to the team, this has two sides to it. Either the team will say, okay, we need to support him and we need to support him or her, or like the team will get worried. Like with too much stress, and if my leader is getting emotional and is getting worried, what's going to happen to us?
Well, I think it's depends if it's done in a safe space. And the first thing that needs to be built is trust.
Yeah.
And if you have trust in teams, then you can be yourself and you can share. I do think as a leader, you have a responsibility to hold the line, and it's for each leader to push back if there's too much coming down from the top.
Yeah.
And say like, actually, I need to protect the team. Like what I used to do is when big deliverables were coming down, I'd be like, okay, so we've got these 6 things on the block. This is massive. So what's coming off? And then I would keep my stress out of the team, but I would share the pressure in a way that was like safe and authentic. And if people trust you, they buy in and they work harder and they don't mind.
True.
It's when there's like a lack of trust or people feel insecure that falls away, and then you get like lost productivity and people going off sick and all of those things. So you can be under pressure and still be in a healthy environment.
I totally agree. And when we say about sharing, would you say that those leaders should share with their counterparts or with a coach, an external coach? So who should they share with? Because sharing with the team in a safe environment will get productivity. But if we don't have that safe environment, who should they share with?
Absolutely. So I think it's one thing to share with your peers if you can in that environment. Depends on like what the culture's like, the political nature, the size of the organization, But I like to think that within any organization you can create your safe peer group and share, and that does help so much. Yeah. But outside of that, absolutely, like I think everybody should have a coach, whether that's like a senior level or a more junior level. And I think a coach is really great because it just holds up, like they hold up a mirror on what's reality and not, and where your mind is taking you somewhere, or you have limiting beliefs, or, all of the things that have happened to you in your past culminate in a certain way. We all have a different version of the truth, don't we? Yeah. And coaches are great for that. But beyond that, then community is everything. And whether you find that in like an entrepreneur group, a community like Gaia, for example, for women, or you have something external to you, then I think that's really what changes the game, because it's just creating like normalizing stuff and speaking about stuff. And men are worse for this, actually, like.
I used to have someone, it's a sad story, actually. I used to have a leader, very big rank. He used to cry in the toilet every day back in the company.
Wow.
Every single day. So he goes under pressure, burnout, goes to the toilet, 5 minutes, cry, scream, go back fresh. And this was his coach.
Wow.
His toilet was his coach. He did not show vulnerability in front of anyone. He did not show emotions in front of anyone. He used to get it out himself in the toilet.
Wow. Well, I wouldn't necessarily.
It was to that level.
Yeah,
it was to that level. And this is something critical now, by the way, in the workplace. People don't know how to share their emotions. And it's affecting everyone around them. It's affecting the morality, the motivation, their own health. And this is, unfortunately, where most of the corporate world is falling. And as you mentioned, talk to someone, get a coach, speak up. Just speak up. Don't let it in.
Yeah, exactly. And at that level, I mean, I've had coach, therapist, mentor, you know, and that for me is like, there's therapy as well alongside that. If you feel like that, then that's so important as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's so sad that happened.
Yeah.
And it's happening, you know, it's the reality.
Unfortunately. Okay. Throughout your journey, story time.
Yep.
Throughout your journey, self-doubt. Let's talk about self-doubt a little bit, because you did the career shift, you did that big move. Did you ever face self-doubt? And how did you overcome that?
Yes, I've faced it in various points of my career, various junctures. I think the biggest one for me was probably actually when I moved from I think it was director to MD level, and I moved from being like amongst my peers with like a group of people that were my friends to managing the team, and then having to do a big restructure. And that was so hard, like emotionally, you know, I was like a wreck, and having to keep it to myself because, you know, I'm about to impact a lot of people, and they would obviously, it would be a lot worse for them long term. So that for me was kind of like, why have I been chosen? How has this come to me? And I'm not I'm not better than them at, like, you know, all these things and these questions started coming into my head. And for that, I was just like, you just need to get your head down and deliver and do it in a really human way.
Yeah.
And that was a big milestone for me. And then every kind of time I've moved up, I've just tried to get in there with a coach and everything, but get in my own head to be like, you're there because you deserve to be there, you know. And first kind of public speaking engagements and things like that, it's like, just, you're there, people want to listen to you, that kind of like play it back the other way, you know, like, you are successful and these are your skills, and just kind of like writing it down and reinforcing it, but
assuring yourself.
Exactly. But it wasn't really until I left, like, if I'm totally honest, until I left the corporate world and I started doing this work, where I really looked back on, okay, like, what made me successful? And it's not being amazing at managing a P&L, you know, like, absolutely, probably the opposite. No, but it's more the, like, really is the people aspect and developing people and being personable and authentic, and people being able to feel that. But when you're in a big corporate, you don't put value on those skills because you're like, everything is about delivery, not necessarily
systematic. Everything is systematic, KPIs, reporting.
Exactly.
This is how it works.
Yeah, it's not the way you deliver. And then afterwards, it's what I do now is completely different to what I used to do, but it is using the same skill set and everything I've learned about in corporate, you know, over the last almost 2 decades. But it now, I really do feel, I feel confident, you know, I'm good at what I do. I'm great at creating safe spaces and making like changes, cultural transformations within organizations, because I've lived and breathed it and I know who I am.
Okay, so now let's take the self-doubt and go speak about Guy a little bit, and women empowerment and creating safe spaces for women to speak. Do you think women lead differently? And I'll tell you why I'm asking the question. Because from my own personal experience, I've been working for the past 15 years, and 6 of those years I've been managed by men, and the maximum I stayed in a job was 1.5 years. It's not about the leader, by the way. It's about the leader and other factors. But with H&I, when for the first time I've been led by a woman, it's my 8th year. And there's a total difference in the leadership style. Leadership was 50% of it, and other factors were 50%. But out of that 50%, being led by a woman was totally different for me. How do you think women lead? And do they lead differently? Or it's about the skills, not the gender?
I love this.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that's been your experience. So it's, for me, it's twofold. I think women lead naturally with empathy.
Okay.
You know, so we care how people feel. It's a big driver for us, and moreover, like, emotional intelligence. I think we're more likely to kind of feel what's happening in the room. But I don't necessarily think women generally lead like that, and that's because there's been a lack of those behaviors being modeled so far before us, you know. So we're used to this masculine type of leadership, and I differentiate between men and women because I think it's more of a masculine or feminine energy, and I think men can lead with a feminine energy as much as women can lead with a masculine energy. And typically corporates reward masculine behaviors, you know, discipline, results, rather than what we've just talked about, the how you get there and the skills that you use for that. So, but I think women naturally would lead like that, and it's what you've experienced, which is amazing. But it's now the work where I'm focused is how do we get women to actually show up like that? How do we be the change and lead how we want to authentically?
But the thing is here, there's two words that are very important now. Assertiveness versus empathy. Sometimes people take advantage of empathy. We're not similar. Like all the employees and all the human beings, we're not similar. Sometimes when women lead with empathy and care and being decent and being nice, a lot of people take advantage of that. How do you put an end to this? How can you be assertive, but at the same time be a good leader and show empathy and lead with emotions and care about your people, but at the same time stop someone from taking advantage of that? Because this is where, from my own experience, by the way, I'm not generalizing, and this is where most of the women leaders I've seen fall in that trap. They're really good people, they're really genuine, and some people take advantage of that, and this is where they fall. Versus when a masculine or a man comes in, assertive, yes, I'll show a little bit of empathy, or I'll show empathy, but at the end of the day, work is work. We have to get things done, and you cannot take advantage of me at the end of the day. How can a woman in leadership show empathy, be good, but at the same time, stop people from taking advantage of them during work?
Yeah, so I think it's boundaries.
Boundaries. Okay.
And I think women can be assertive and empathetic, as can men. And I think to be assertive, then that trusted environment is really important as well. So you should be able to switch it up sometimes and be like, we got to do it like this, and there's no questions asked, and it needs to be done by end of day. You know, if it's like high priority. But because you've already built that trusted environment, people are like, okay, like, well, they must be stressed. Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, when you feel up, like, do it.
Yeah, exactly.
No discussions, just do it.
Just do it this way. Like, you know, I don't want questions this time. It has to be like this. Yeah. But then, of course, be empathetic to people's like personal circumstances or whatever it might be that comes up where you need to lead with empathy. But for me, it's all about boundaries and knowing what your boundaries are and being clear with them, but most importantly, communicating them. Yeah. So, you know, you can be like, look, that you trying to take advantage of me. I'm not stupid. Like this is where I draw the line, or however it is. But I like to think it's good to have boundaries, but they're not good if you haven't told anybody what they are.
Yeah, totally agree with you. 100% on that. Speaking about women empowerment, do you have any women figure in your life that help you through your journey that you want to talk about or thank?
Yeah, I had one lady called Mary McIntosh who I worked with at Barclays, which was quite a few years ago now, maybe 15 years ago. And the role I was doing, I wasn't particularly enjoying it. And actually I had a business before Barclays, and then I shut the business because I went to Barclays so that I could have a secure career and get a mortgage. And so I was like still in my head and like had this entrepreneurial thing like back then. Anyway, I wanted to leave because the job just wasn't really that sexy. And she said to me, she was like, look, at the moment, I actually wanted to leave and go and work in fashion PR. And she was like, look, at the moment, you can, if you want to go and buy yourself like a pair of YSL shoes, you can just go and buy them. But if you go into fashion PR, you're going to be looking at those shoes and you're not going to be able to afford them for like, who knows how many years.
Okay.
And in my mind, I was like, yeah, I do get that, but I just want to like, you know, I need to leave this like compliance role. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And she said, look, I think consultancy would be much better for you. Like go and work at one of the big four, change it up a bit, but stay until your bonus has been paid because I'm going to make it worth your while and you've done a great job this year. And I was like, that was really good. Yeah. You know, like I was leaving and then she did the right thing by me anyway. So she helped me find a job as a consultant and then also like made sure I was sorted, and I was like, yeah, I like that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was good. It was a turning point for me.
And it shows care at the end of the day. Like, that's a good leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cared about the individual, not the business. So you cared about setting you right, getting you the good job, getting you the bonus, and just caring about you, which is important.
Yeah.
Okay, the segment called Story Time. Okay, I need from you 3 stories. I'm not going to tell you what are the 3 stories. I'm going to start with the first story. Tell me a story in your career that was a funny, happy story. That whenever I say happy story within your journey, career-wise, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Happy, funny, something that when you think about and you reflect back on, you just laugh.
Happy, yeah. Probably my first job was at the Financial Ombudsman Service in the UK, which is like an adjudication financial. It's a bit boring, what's underneath the organisation. But basically it was kind of like a bit of a holding pen for people who had finished a law degree and then were looking for like a training contract in legal. So we were all of a certain age and we just had so much fun. And some of my best friends come from that role. You know, like we just used to hang out in work, after work. Like it just, the work itself wasn't hard.
Yeah.
You know, it was just living totally carefree and fun. And now I look at people doing that now at that age, and I'm like, it's just so good to be that.
Yeah.
To have that again, no pressure.
Type second story, I want a sad story.
Okay.
I want something that when you think about the story, it was like, I've learned from that. Did that happen to you or happened to someone else? And what did you learn from that story?
Yeah, so sad one, other than the one right at the start, won't talk about that again. The same around when I was restructuring that team, which was full of my friends, I actually had a functional boss in the group that was not very nice to me, like at all. And she basically told me that I shouldn't speak up about anything and that I was young and immature and that my opinion wasn't respected. And which was all just rubbish, you know, like it was respected and I'd just been promoted. And I don't know why. It was obviously like her projection on me for some reason, because maybe I was quite a bit younger than her, you know, like, but the reflection is now I know that when people behave like that towards you, it's generally like they're projecting on you. There's something that they're insecure about, which is coming out. But I, rather than address it like immediately, I literally cried. I can't believe I did this now. I literally cried myself to sleep for a month.
Wow.
And then it was only like after a month or so, I eventually told my boss, because I was worried that he didn't really respect me because I hadn't worked with him that long, you know, and I just had this promotion. But he actually handled it really well. He was like, I'm going to deal with it. And he like spoke to her, like put her in a place, and then like took it up as well for like performance.
Why do you think she did that? Is it jealousy? Is it
I think insecurity, yeah.
insecurity and jealousy?
I think insecurity, yeah.
Okay, now that is a tricky question I'm going to ask. Okay, and I'm probing on this.
Okay.
Because we're talking about women empowerment. Do you think men get the kind of jealousy as well within the workplace, or they get threatened? So when we talk about men doing wrong things versus women doing wrong things in the corporate life, do you think when men become that kind of bad image, is it because they're threatened, and women because they are jealous, or they're also scared, or gender is not a factor here?
I don't
with bad
know.
behavior?
Yeah. I think men get away with it as normal and they do it more publicly. I think the situation that happened to me there, I've had quite a few male bosses and I can't imagine any of them saying something like that to me. You know, I can imagine them being like, your performance hasn't hit the mark because of X, Y, Z, and being really direct and then giving me like really short deadlines to fix it. I can imagine that happening. And I can, and I've seen it in meetings where men have been like overly assertive, more aggressive.
Okay.
And it's been accepted as that's just the way they are. You know, they're direct. They like, you have to have your like self-prepared before you have a meeting with them. Whereas when women are like that, it gets criticized as like, you know, aggressive, not assertive, emotional, those kind of words. But I think it's a conditioning that we have that needs to be broken, you know, and this all ties back to that authenticity piece and all of like, you know, the hundreds of women that I've worked with, it's always the same thing.
That's the dilemma that will never be resolved.
Yeah.
That's the only problem. It will never be resolved.
It's all about, for me, increments of change. You know, so like if I and Gaia can be like make 5% different to women in leadership in the UAE and then like beyond globally, and then that is what matters. And it is about people making small change, because I think sometimes we put so much on like the bigger picture and like our governments and policy and all the terrible things that are happening.
Yeah.
And it's about like, what can we as individuals do to affect change? So I do think it will change.
Hopefully. Okay, third story.
I hope so.
Third story, I want a story that taught you something. So a situation, and tell me the situation, that actually is a life lesson for you. Career-wise or life-wise, doesn't matter.
So for me, it was everything that happened that I mentioned at the start, the postnatal depression and then the pneumonia. And what that really taught me was like, time is the most precious resource that you have, and it reset the way that I think about work and giving everything to a corporate that, to be quite frank, I don't care about and doesn't align to my values in my particular situation.
Yeah.
And actually just to make the most out of life, because no matter what you believe, you're only in this life once. And so you're not going to get to the gates of like heaven and think, oh, I wish I'd worked more, or, so it's, for me, it's just like, enjoy yourself. Health is the number one thing. So I've like completely switched it up from a health perspective and just look after yourself and enjoy spending time with the people that you love and doing the things that you love. And, what do you think about?
You just opened my eyes on something, because I always listen to it and people say that health is number one. And personally, my health is not that good. I don't take care of my health at all. And when we were discussing before shooting, and we were discussing about you will only live on earth once and let's live every day happy, I was like, I want to live longer. I want to live longer. And in order for me to just try to live longer is take care of my health. And that was just an eye-opener. Like right now, I zoned out. I was like, what am I doing to myself? And thank you for that. And actually was like, what am I doing to myself? Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Okay, before we end, I want you to give us a piece of advice for women out there on how to be more in peace, how to be more successful, how to overcome any problems that they're facing at the moment. Just give us any general advice.
So for me, it's like really do the work in understanding like your values, what makes you tick and what makes you, and then show up with those and lead authentically. Because don't wait for somebody to give you permission. It's your responsibility.
Take risks.
Take risks.
Okay. Marisa, thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.